Okay, welcome back to Geometry, ladies and gentlemen. Chapter 8.4, we are covering some trigonometry, a little bit of SOHCAHTOA action. Alright, so trigonometry is the study of triangle measurement. You can see that word tri in there, trigonometry. Okay, so if we look at a triangle here, we can have a trigonometric ratio, which is the ratio of the lengths of two sides of a triangle. So remember, for example, we have A, the angle A here, or the point A, the side A is opposite its angle. Okay? Now, same thing with point B, or angle B, side B is opposite that. And then same thing for C, and C is the hypotenuse opposite the right angle. Alright, so we're looking at those ratios, A to B, B to C, and A to C. Now, trigonometric ratios, okay, if we have a right triangle, then the sine of angle A, okay, is the ratio of the length of the opposite side to the hypotenuse. Okay, so the sine is the opposite to the hypotenuse. That's what the SOH, so, stands for. Sine is opposite to hypotenuse. If we look at cosine, the cosine is the ratio of the adjacent side. So for A, the adjacent leg would be B, adjacent leg to the hypotenuse to C. If I'm looking at the cosine of B, I want the adjacent leg, that would be A, to the hypotenuse. Okay, so cosine is adjacent to hypotenuse, and then the tangent is the opposite to the adjacent. Okay, tangent is opposite to adjacent. SOHCAHTOA. You can remember that little acronym, SOHCAHTOA. We'll be saying that a lot in class. It's your new favorite word, SOHCAHTOA. It's kind of like Tamatoa, but just a little bit better. Well, SOHCAHTOA hasn't always been this glam. Oh. Alright, so SOHCAHTOA, tangent is opposite to adjacent. Alright, so we can figure out angles using this, but first let's look at just straight up the sine. So sine P, express each ratio as a fraction and as a decimal. Okay, so we want this ratio, sine P. P, remember, sine was opposite to hypotenuse. So of P, the opposite side is 15, and the hypotenuse is 17. So 15 divided by 17 is approximately 0.88. Cosine to P, remember, cosine is adjacent to hypotenuse. So we have 8 to 17. Divide those, you get approximately 0.47. That's the cosine of angle P. And then the tangent is opposite to adjacent, so 15 over 8. Divide those out, and you get approximately 1.88. Alright, now we want to do the same thing for angle Q. Sine is opposite to hypotenuse, so 8 divided by 17, that's 0.47. Then cosine for angle Q, adjacent to hypotenuse, that's 15 to 17. Divide 15 by 17, you get 0.88. And then the tangent to angle Q, we have opposite to adjacent. So we have 8 over 15, and that is about 0.53. Okay, using a special right angle to express the tangent of 30. So the tangent of this angle, 30. Now remember, tangent is opposite to adjacent. So opposite to adjacent, so we're going to take x over x times radical 3. We can cancel out the x, and we have 1 over radical 3. Remember, no radicals in the denominator, so we're going to get rid of those, and we get radical 3 over 3, or approximately 0.58. So the tangent of angle 30 is 0.58. Now, the inverse trigonometric ratios, we can use this if I know that the tangent of angle 30 is 0.58, then on the flip side, the inverse tangent of 0.58 is 30 degrees. So if I can find the tangent, then I can find the angle. So we have that same thing for sine and cosine. The inverse sine of that measure is the angle. Okay? In order to find that, there is a key. We use the second key on your calculator, and I'll show you how to use that. So we have the inverse sine. If sine A is a certain number, like we had tangent here, if sine A is 0.3, then the inverse sine of 0.3 is the measure of that angle. All right, so let's try to find the measure of angle A to the nearest tenth. Okay, we know, here's angle A, we know the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So for opposite to hypotenuse, we can use the sine. So 18 over 27, and that simplifies down to 2/3. Now, remember, we want to do the inverse sine of 2/3 to find the angle. So I'm going to type that into my calculator. So hit second, sine. I know it looks like sin, but that's the sine button. Then parentheses 2 divided by 3. Hit enter, and you get 41.8103149. So the measure of angle A is approximately 41.8 degrees. Okay, to solve a right triangle. Solve a triangle means find all the missing measures. So we're going to find the missing length, and we're going to find the missing angles. We know this one's 90, so we want to find the other two and the missing length. So we know the opposite and adjacent legs. We don't know the hypotenuse, so we can use tangent if we know the legs. So 9 over 5. And we use the inverse to get the measure, inverse tangent to get the measure, so the measure is approximately 61 degrees. Now it's a triangle, so we know the total is 180 degrees. So if we want to find angle measure of y here, we take 180, add these other two sides up, 90 and 61, and then subtract those from 180, and that gives us a measure of 29 here. So now we've solved the angles, and finally we want to find the missing side. Well, it's a right triangle, and I know the two legs. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. If you take the squares of a and b, add them up, and you'll get the square of c. Oh, and then square root it. There's nothing to it to find the measure of the longest side. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit of trigonometry for you today. Brought to you by the Mastermind channel. Remember to like and subscribe.